look cold, bro, but he really ain't do shit. You will see.
All right. On to the Isekai Battle Royale. So, do you want to kick it off with fire for this one too?
Sure. Uh, so I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and most isekai, at least the ones where people get dropped into fantasy worlds, are based on Dungeons and Dragons. So I thought it would be interesting to see, like, if a group of these isekai main characters could do like a dungeon crawl versus like Ainz Ooal Gown, who is like a lich who runs a dungeon full of strong ass niggas. So I picked out kind of like the strongest niggas that I could think of that are usually in isekais, and so that was my nigga Goblin Slayer, because he ain't got outright strength, but that nigga got the Batman strats. Um, Rimuru from that time I was reincarnated as slime. That nigga kind of really cold, and he can absorb super strong shit and turn up, which maybe they saving grace here. Kirito, because Kid Jesus can do what he want. And then Naofumi from the Rising of Shield Hero, because that nigga Naofumi low key kind of cold with the shit, and I think he got clout as being one of the strongest isekai characters.
And now, Fumi, we're going off of the anime understanding.
Yeah, like before we got started, I thought we would need to drop some clarifications real quick.
Go ahead.
So pretty much going off first with MGG, are we, as far as like status of every party involved, are we just using anime feats?
When I had made it, that's what I was thinking. But to be honest, I think niggas could use some help against Ainz because he's stacked. So I mean, shit. If you want to add some shit, I say add it.
No, I mean, like, I personally don't know, but from what I've heard and even seen the comments, but the manga Rimuru and at least manga Naofumi, they kind of become broken. So I mean, like, that's why I think it's actually a pretty big deal if we're
See, I
talking
wouldn't
about
know.
manga stats too. Because
So I say let's just keep it anime, because me personally, I don't read any of the manga.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us is reading the manga. That's why I think we just want to preface it for the audience, which is like
no,
this
I
is
mean
coming out of our anime.
that's exactly why we're saying this too.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallit. And then two, when you say Ainz, do you actually mean like every like party entity that's actually a part of the Tomb of Nazarick, or just
Yeah.
like
So
Ainz and like basic I don't know, foot soldiers? Or do you
I
mean like
mean,
everybody's there?
so when I say my specific terms were like a dungeon crawl.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is, like, yes, it is these four against the entire Tomb of Nazarick, but they don't have to like head bash this. They don't have a time limit. It is like, look, it is your goal, just like if you were to pick up a random game of D&D, to go into this crypt and eventually destroy the head. How you go about that is completely up to you. So they might want to just run through it boxing every nigga. That might get them clapped. But hey, they could do that. They could sneak, they could rest, they could take as long as they need. But yes, it is these four against the entirety of the Tomb of Nazarick. Not necessarily at one time, but yes, the goal is to take out the whole thing.
Last question on the original post. You said prep time that the adventurers have. Does Ainz have prep time too? Do they know they're coming? Slash,
No,
do they know who they are?
because in general, it is the group of adventurers who know of the evil ahead, and the just like with Ainz don't be knowing who coming up. Niggas just come for his head.
Okay. All right. So okay, now that we got all the specifications out, that was important. That was important. Um, if I want to start this off, I'm gonna still give it to the Tomb of Nazarick, with high difficulty. And as far as out of 10, right now, I probably give Ainz 7. For the simple reason that Homie's roster of big hitters is huge. As far as the Floor Guardians, Albedo, effing fuck, I can't remember his name, Copycat Homie that guards like the treasury in there, along with all the maids and the head butler. Not to mention, and then just like, all like the actual beasts and creatures under them. But even starting with the maids, like one maid by themselves, the power scale that they gave them is kind of monstrous in the sense that you can argue that one maid will at least give one of the four characters reasonable trouble by themselves. So then you're just talking about like stack on stack of actual characters at that strength or higher, not to mention actual Ainz. I don't see how only four of them are going to bring the smoke enough to actually beat them. That's pretty much my summary.
All right. I'll go. So for me, looking at this roster, here's how I broke it down in my mind. I don't see much of anything coming from Goblin Slayer, and I gotta be real with that. That nigga is about killing goblins. If there's any goblins in Ainz roster, them niggas is getting bodied for sure. Other than that, though, his equipment is all based off that. And he's more of like a I don't want to. I guess MacGyver's the word I'm looking for. I don't know. Just he. I don't think he has the strength to really go against any of the niggas there. Rimuru has potential strats. I don't think he goes into fights without knowing he's gonna win in some way or with some level of confidence that he's gonna win. Plus, there's his predator ability, which, as far as I understand, doesn't really have limits into what it can absorb. So it really can shut down a lot of fights with the top tomb of Nazarick niggas. But anybody with any sort of stress, I think, will be able to outsmart that predator ability. But any of the I think there's that floor guardian that's pretty dumb. Like I could see him easily getting absorbed by that. Kirito, to me, I see him as like a super strong combatant. Anyways, I would argue that his strength should be on par based off the way they try to write him in stories. Should be on par with one of the floor guardians because he's just a OP power level type of nigga. Now Fumi, I'm assuming that in the manga he's OP, but since we're anime only, from what I've seen, he's just come up into the cusp of his powers. He has a dope weapon, is strong, but I still think fighting capability wise, he's like subpar floor guardian somewhere. Um, so with all that being said, my thought is that it's probably going to be 8 out of 10 Ainz. And I'm giving the two only to a Rimuru strat that really incorporates all of the team well, or Rimaru's predator ability, basically cutting out most of the fat of
Right.
people they have to fight.
No, I'm pretty much in a complete agreement.
Okay. I'm the reverse.
Whoa.
And I will mind y'all that I am fresh off of watching the Goblin Slayer movie, which is dubbed on Funimation. Anybody care to look?
Cut the check. Cut the check.
So right. But yeah, so I had picked this group starting with Goblin Slayer in mind because I was like, man, what would he need to be able to take on Ainz? Because clearly he fights above his weight class all the time. So I see him as the Batman in this Justice League. It's like, yeah, if you were to look at Batman versus Darkseid, you'd be like, what, nigga? Why is he here? Yeah, but that nigga there though, right? Like, Goblin Slayer absolutely cannot power with these niggas, but this nigga's strats is beyond these other niggas. Like Rimuru, Kirito, and Naofumi all have good Isekai strats. I will put them at Isekai strat level comparable to niggas that are with the Nines group. This nigga Goblin Slayer, that nigga got the Death Note strats in the Isekai. Like, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna put him at quite Death Note level, but like that nigga really is methodical in how he thinks. And if we were to angle rather his this thoughts towards like the Temple of Nazarick, that nigga, especially with the Predator ability, Kirito's ability to sneak in and get stuff, like my nigga, I think that he gonna have a couple plans ready. Like, all right, bro, this how we about to handle these niggas. And then That's what he brings to the table. Kirito and no, not Kirito. Rimuru and Naofumi are both. They both bring the same thing to the table, except one is offensive and one is defensive. As you beat levels in the Temple of Nazarick, these niggas will exponentially get stronger. You know what I'm saying? And we already know
Yeah.
from Ainz is that all of his niggas combined together could clap him. He said it himself, right? So if they get to Ainz after clapping his niggas, it's almost him basically saying like, "Yo, I'm about to get clapped right here." The only thing that's gonna say that nigga is they robots and he not, so he got good strats. But my nigga Goblin Slayer there for that. You know what I'm saying? And then
I
Kid
mean, like
Jesus there. If niggas need to really get clapped up, yo, Kirito, put this nigga under the dirt, bro.
See, my only hesitation to that, I definitely didn't think about the dungeon crawling aspect as much as you did. When you brought that up, that is a strong point of their like them leveling up through the different parts of the dungeon. My only hesitation to that is I think in both cases, just from the anime, Rimuru and Naofumi do have a cap. Like there is a certain amount of power that can overpower them, right? Like we've seen Rimuru have it with the demon lords. Like at this current stage, if a demon lord pull up, he will get like defeated, right? He can't outstrat that. And then now Fumi, it's like we just seen him have a difficult fight already. So it's like I definitely see the OP-ness, but I can see that getting countered by going into a room where the nigga is just too strong, which I think Ainz has that. But that's my only counter to what you said. Other than that, I think it made a lot of sense.
the only I agree, but I would also give that fact to Ainz too. Um, if we were talking about the Tomb of Nazarick before the anime started, quote unquote, in a sense of if this was still a video game that they were all kind of in and playing, I could see that being true. But since now all the characters have their own like they all have like consciousness and like can actually make decisions on their own, not to mention Ainz's own personality in the sense of trying to save and treating all of his members in the tomb as fam, if he sees that these guys are actually making mad decent headway into the tomb and starts even taking out like a floor guardian or two, he's going to be adjusting his plans and kind of making strats on the fly to kind of counter and learn as they're getting further on into the dungeon. So though he won't technically getting physically stronger as they keep going, his strats will be updated based on the abilities he will be seeing. And they have proved, at least in the latest season, that homie's got like cameras slash at least ways to view enemies as they
Sure.
as soon as entered the tomb. So I mean, it's kind of I mean, and based on like the strats we've seen from Ainz in general, I don't think it's too far fetched to say that okay, we ain't dealing with no normal busters here. Yo, all the floor guardians, we gonna be needing to make a plan while they start taking out some fodder. You know
And
what I
now,
mean? So considering that, I would say, I mean, it's tough to say who would actually bring more. Well, not bring more. Who would actually gain more as they've been going through the dungeon. If anything, I would just kind of put it as a wash, low key.
um, I just like two more things I wanted to add in is that I agree and understand that Ainz is a strategist, um, but I think almost every main character in video game isekais are is not an abnormal trait. In fact, every single one of these characters on here could be considered a strategist in their own right.
True.
So, and I would just say that of everybody listed here, of the five isekai people here, I think Goblin Slayer, well, technically he's not in the isekai, but you know what I mean. I
Yeah.
think Goblin Slayer has the best strats. Um, and combined with some of these niggas, and also another thing I want to throw out is we seen Ainz at an almost death state. Ainz don't got a main character turn up power. He is working within the confines of what he can do. He's just a powerful person that played the game for a long time. All of these niggas on the other end do have a main character turn up. Like yo, the chips are down. I can literally go outside of my ability and turn up. Don't sleep on that now.
Yeah. I mean,
I
just as
mean,
a
I'm
comment,
not, but the abilities we've been seeing of Ainz ain't nothing to sleep on though, too. Just like base, as far as like him never being worried. But I mean, you gotta, I mean, like that's the fact of itself, right? I mean, Ainz, we've never seen Ainz in a place where he was about to die in the sense that he thought he was about to die. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, like he, in the sense of like his own natural ability and OPness is like valid in a sense of like his abilities that he's actually shown us could like rival even some of the OPness that we see in the other characters in the sense of like instant death, almost like I mean in a Predator sense kind of concept where he has a one-hit kill and he does have time manipulating magic too, which in my opinion is kind of OP by itself. So I mean when they get to Ainz, it's like even if the floor guardians or all the other members of the tomb does any kind of work on these kids, I think Ainz has like a shot like by himself to do some hardcore damage after all the knowledge that he gains from him actually based on the team actually going up against the floor guardians by itself. The biggest thing, like I said before, I think like the biggest plus that Ainz has is just the quantity of actual creatures and personnel that's going to go up against these kids and more time for them to learn. Their biggest, I mean, the other side's biggest problem is simply going to be endurance because they only have 4 people going up against a literal army that
I
only
mean, yeah,
has
they.
like hundreds
I
and hundreds
wouldn't.
of people.
I wouldn't suspect that they would take on the whole group like one after another. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just off pure numbers, he win. I'm not really speculating on the strategy in like in particular like that. But I could assume that there might definitely be a case like, yo, we hit up levels, 1 through 2, then we had to dip out. You know what I'm saying? Came
Mm.
back a couple weeks later, hit up your next levels, like that would just be suicide for them niggas to try and rush his shit. Like, I mean, if they want to, I don't
Unless
know what them niggas on, but I
unless they
wouldn't do
brought
that.
their groups with them, then I think we definitely have something
Oh,
that's
that'd
more
be a
of an
different
even
story.
Goblin Slayer's
playing
group is
field.
fodder.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. Because
I
if
mean,
that's the
I
case,
think
then
that
I
would be a
think Goblin
whole. I mean,
Slayer's
that'd be a whole
also
nother
fodder.
conversation. If Rimuru can bring like his own like nation
Yeah,
roster too, I mean, that's kind of
there we
huge by
go.
itself. So
Yeah. But I mean, one thing I did want to mention on the Goblin Slayer strats comment is I do agree that I feel like I feel like Goblin Slayer may have more stress, but when I think about it and what I've seen, unless the movie says something otherwise, the things he executed strats on were, while the goblins are cunning, I will not consider them like,
Smart.
yeah, smart in that like they're really strategically planning out how they execute things. I do think they're cunning. I do think they can adapt, but I feel like compared to maybe what some of the other isekai mains have fought down the road, I don't think it's really a chess match with Goblin Slayer. I think he's a really good hunter
Hmm.
and has like really good strategies to capture the things that he hunts,
That's
if that
fair.
makes sense. And they're executed cleanly. So that
Yeah.
would just be my only argument there. So I feels like when he's outside of his goblin element, a lot of those strats can fade. But like I said, if we brought the teams in, I do think we have a real powerhouse, and this becomes more of an even fight in my mind because like Rimuru has backup strong characters that probably can, handle some of the fodder
Alpha
of
Me got a whole village of animal people.
right.
exactly.
No, I
Yeah,
mean
he got
that's just it. I mean, this would be a completely different combo if we're
right.
talking about
And
like
all of
squad.
those people can level up throughout their battle. So when you add that leveling up thing, then it might even flip it to where Ainz is probably going to get destroyed because, like you said, they can just come in, take on the challenges incrementally, grow their base. By the time they come back, like these niggas have floor level. You know what I'm saying? Their
See,
top subordinates are probably 4 guardian level
I
or
thought
close.
about that same thing, but the reason I shied away from that as a question is because I was like, all right, I was going off of like, basic video game stupid dungeon logic. Like, yo,
Yeah.
Ainz kind of stay put, let them niggas come to him. But I'm like, all right, if they get their whole group, like, yo, this is a military versus military, and Ainz get to move, I don't think it's as easy. Now I think it's a little more like just flat out even hard to say, period. Because you get into a lot of stuff. I haven't seen these niggas manage a country the way I seen Ainz do it.
That's facts.
Yeah.
I seen Ainz literally go into a place, systematically break that shit down, you know what I'm saying? Without stepping foot in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
This
and
nigga a
let's
real political terrorist.
I mean, you gotta also not sleep that it's not just Ainz who's making up that strat. It's a couple of his floor guardians that's a part of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like that. I mean that you got. I'm just saying, like you can't sleep on his heavy roster as far as like not just power goes too, because some of those guys strats, especially like Buddy with the glasses. Yo, I mean, homie, you could even argue he's got more strats than Ainz. Like after round.
So I mean, like, and then that become a whole argument at that point. Like, that's an analysis.
No, that is true. There's definitely a strong military analysis at that point. Because I mean, like now, Fumi's bringing people to the table. Rimuru is Kirito and Goblin Slayer, not necessarily, but
I mean,
still.
if Kirito bring his side homies, his like closest niggas are kind of strong.
Yeah, that's true.
So they ain't coming with depth, but they coming, definitely with a couple strong niggas.
Yeah, they come with quality. Well, I mean, sorry, did you say what your 10 out of 10 one was for this?
Me, my bad. So my 10 out of 10, or my number, I'll say probably like 6 out of 10. Very high difficulty. If they employ the right strats, right? Okay. I think that they got them to employ if they do. To the adventurers, and this is obviously caveat, assuming that Ainz is kind of acting like a typical, boss.
Right.
He could just be like, oh, these niggas coming in here, evacuate the whole fucking place. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand shit like that can happen. But I'm just like, if he decides to stick it out, I'm gonna give it 6 out of 10. Very high difficulty to my adventurers because these niggas main characters, and I don't think Ainz is.
Damn. All right, Deuce, did you have a rating for this one?
No, I can't really rate it. I don't know too much about all the different shows.
George. All right, that's fine. I mean, any other